Hello, and welcome to Security Field Day 13. I'm Rick Vanover from Veeam.
And I'm Emily Tejas from Veeam.
And we're going to talk about the security ecosystem and how Veeam and our partners are really helping keep data resilient. Emily?
Yes, thanks, Rick. So we talked about the Veeam power of three. So not just what we're doing from an innovation standpoint, but also what Veeam is doing in partnering with our security vendors and all of those wonderful partnerships that organizations have already invested in. So let's be able to allow them to utilize those tools and then just feed our own information into those platforms. So this is just a quick, I would say, snapshot of the actual vendors that we're currently working with, but we're essentially working with over 65 different security vendors. We had a very busy RSA this year, needless to say. But some of the top ones up there that you can see, right? Palo Alto, Torque, which is one that's brand new, CrowdStrike, Splunk, Sophos. I mean, these are all really great security vendors that not only are they pretty well into the organizations that they are working with, right? So they have their incident response playbooks that have already been created. Those security analysts, they already know how they want to leverage their different war rooms or their action items that they want to take if they were to identify any type of malware, suspicious activity happening in their environment. So why not be able to feed all the information from the data protection platform directly into that? Now, there's another bit in here that we like to call out, which is not just what's happening from a data protection standpoint, but then also data overall monitoring. So we do talk a lot about Veeam One, which is our monitoring reporting tool, essentially be able to monitor the hypervisor, the cloud workloads, the M365 backup product that we utilize, right? But being able to feed in any of those events directly into these security partners is really, really important. And also it shows some really great impacts for customers to be able to identify, okay, do we have, large read-write rates happening on a data store that's not normal? Do we have suspicious users trying to log on to different machines and they're doing multiple attempts at that? How can we be notified of that sooner or quicker before we have some type of incident that could occur? So these are going to be some of the different ecosystem providers that we play with. And then when we look at it from a stance of, didn't change there.
Sometimes.
There it goes. All right. So when we look at it from a stance of what happened both during, before, and post backup and recovery, right? Having all of those capabilities, not just to be able to scan and validate those backups, but then also feeding that information in. So I'm going to cover the different types of events that we can actually feed into different types of security platforms. So from the malware detection all the way down to maybe even some of the items that we're going to see from an overall overview. And then we're going to dive into some of the other pieces in here from Rick.
I have a comment on this real quick while Emily does this quick little transition. The Veeam CyberSecure, which was that graphic that she just showed, it's a program, it's a package. It includes the highest level of capabilities. It includes a retainer for incident response. It also includes a ransomware recovery warranty, and a little zinger, little data point is we've had 0 claims on that warranty. Coupled with my previous point about the backups immutable and the encryption password, this advice works. And we're really proud of that. We're really keeping customer data safe. So it looks like we're in.
Gosh, it's taking a little while to.
Yeah, which one? Yeah.
There it goes. So customers can find out everything that we are going to report on. So we have a very nice event reference ID that's available. So not just what's happening from click by click inside of the actual data platform, but then also when we're looking at strictly malware detection. We also have a report on our Veeam community, which highlights all the different malware detection and the ways that we are pulling in those events and where they map inside of MITRE, but then also giving information back as to what you should do if you have this that comes up, right? Because the last thing we want is to funnel in and throw a whole bunch of alerts to a security analyst or to a cyber defense lead, and now all of a sudden they're sitting there with 500 plus alerts and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this information, right? So we do help them so that way they can actually be able to triage any of that information. And then this is also available inside of a JSON format. So they can go ahead and upload this into whatever security vendor they're utilizing so they can get that information. We are doing this all through syslog. So essentially it's just syslog, then ID filtering, right? And so that's the only portion that I want to show in here. And then the other piece in here is that we could actually filter it for customers. So if you're using a SIM tool or a provider out there that charges per the amount of information that they are receiving, they can actually come in here and they can make those changes and those adjustments, say, okay, maybe only go ahead and notify on the errors or the warnings. We don't need to get information for everything. So that is something that we really did take to heart, because as much as we love all of those beautiful logos that I showed earlier, a lot of different users are going to leverage whatever they have accessible to them, right? And so if they're utilizing free tools, we can go ahead and we can feed into that as well. I think when I first demoed this, when it came out, I was using Nagios, right? So pretty simple, really easy to set up and utilize.
Well, speaking of accessible, one other thing I'll say that's not entirely, but uniquely Veeam, and not common in the industry, is we don't put our documentation behind a paywall. That XML that I pulled up, yes, Fernando likes that, right?
Thank you.
You know, it's just, we're pretty proud of it, and we want it accessible, and you know, the tinkerers, the practitioners, we want it really accessible for them.
Yeah, so I'll start off with our latest integration, which is our CrowdStrike one. So this actually just recently came out. We made this announcement at Veeam last month. So CrowdStrike, we looked at it 2 different ways, essentially being able to work directly with Falcon LogScale, as well as creating a data parser, so that way customers can create their own customized dashboards and be able to create their own, specialized runbooks and automations and whatever else they need based off of the event IDs that Veeam has available to us. We're available within the CrowdStrike marketplace, so they can actually see that within there. My Zoom is loading on my side.
Well, and you know, these integrations, this ecosystem, they are where they need to be. We have an app in Splunk base. We have this in the CrowdStrike world. I don't know what it's called, App Store, Marketplace.
Yeah, in the marketplace. So we're in all of these marketplaces. We'll keep it all up to date. We're taking in feedback from all of our users that are actively utilizing these applications. But then what we're also finding is users that are actually parsing and, I would say, Frankensteining these different applications together, because they're not utilizing just one tool, right? They have Splunk, they have Windows Defender, they're using CrowdStrike, they're using Palo Alto XSOAR to run automations and playbooks. So they're trying to figure out a way that makes it easier for them to be able to respond to these different types of detections and attacks, while providing that information all into a single space.
Quick question. What would you say is the most common obstacle that you're seeing for people not doing that kind of or for people not doing these kinds of integrations? Is it something that you have to push as Veeam to, hey, look, we can do all this, you're not doing it? Or is it the fact that, oh no, the system integrator that owns that client doesn't work with us? Like, what's your take on how to get this into more people's hands or more people's implementation?
I would say it's probably having the discussion with the actual owner of whatever platform it is that they're utilizing, right? So it's having a discussion with the backup admin or, the sysadmin, whoever is actually managing the Veeam data platform itself. And then them figuring out on their security side, okay, what is it that we're utilizing? Okay, we have this app. Now, how can I go ahead and talk to them about what the event IDs are and why is it important for them to start pushing this through? So it's having that connection, because usually we speak directly to the backup admin, the IT manager, right? So it's getting into this entire realm of security, which I would say in the last 2 years, we've all had to do, right? There's been a significant shift with ransomware and everything else that where everybody's having to speak to security at some point in time. So now it's just getting them into the point of why should we have all this information being pulled in?
Fernando, it's this person and that person in 2 different groups. And if we were having this conversation 10, 15 years ago from a backup perspective, it would be the storage and the networking people fighting with the backup people. I don't know if you've seen the meme of, several Spider-Mans pointing to each other. That kind of was what's going on, but it is, especially upstack in the larger orgs, the same person is running Veeam as that Veeam admin is not. the admin of the security stack, and just bridging that gap and being able to be fluent in their native formats is a huge boon to make that. And it's education. We just got to get it out there, and that's why we're here.
Yeah,
Telling them.
absolutely. So there's 2 dashboards available with CrowdStrike. There's a data protection monitoring as well as a security events monitoring. So this is just going to do a quick level highlight of all the security related events that are happening within the data protection platform, both from Veeam backup and replication, as well as that monitoring and reporting tool, which is Veeam One. So this will just give them a dashboard of being able to pull in and ingest all of that data without them having to go and look at each individual event ID. So this is already pre-built and delivered for the customers to be able to utilize, and then they can actually drill down into detail for any of those, except for when it says I'm not connected to the internet, which for some reason it just keeps on kicking me off the Wi-Fi. So we'll have it reconnect here shortly. There it goes. So we have all of those options that are available within here. Now, I'm going to switch gears because I know we're going to be short on time, and I do want to show some of the other ways that we are seeing customers utilize this. So going back to Fernando's original point, right? How do we get this into the hands of different users or different people within the organization? So me personally, I worked with a actual customer that I guess participated in Tech Field Day a few weeks ago, or most recently, right? So they're a current customer of ours. I'm not going to say the name, but they actually, the security analyst that I worked with there, she actually built her own customizable Splunk environment. So she has her own application for how she reads and ports in data. And she utilized not just the Veeam app for Splunk, but then she's also utilizing Palo Alto XOR. So essentially what she does is she actually folds in all of the Veeam events that they're receiving from their data protection platform. So anything from backups, inline detection, inline scanning, anything that they've done from running the AV tools. And then she has that forwarded into Splunk, and then Splunk becomes the ingest engine to determine what's going to be a high severity level for them. If she has a Sev 1 or Sev 2, it gets forwarded over into Palo Alto XOR. From there, she actually came in and she started building these customizable playbooks. So by default, we give customers 4 playbooks within Palo Alto XOR that they could start working from. So things like starting an instant VM recovery automatically, right? So how can we go ahead and start connecting that data, capturing that virtual machine, from there being able to run any additional items or checks that we want to in there. But what she did is she actually started having it creating war rooms for her. So not just scanning the machine, but if that machine is missing things like Windows Defender or AV on it, let's go ahead and have that be automatically installed. Let's start pulling in the right people early and often so that way we can determine and have a war room to decide, okay, what's happening within this environment? Because now we're not only just seeing it from production level, we're also seeing it inside of our data protection side as well. So this helps them to alert quicker as to a potential attack that could be happening or suspicious event. So those are just some really kind of unique factors that we're seeing. And the other cool story about this is she's never touched Veeam before in her life. So she was able to build this entire app just by funneling in all the events that we're sending into Splunk and with Palo Alto. And she's never once actually gone into the Veeam application itself to set up any of this. So with that, I think the only last one that we have inside of here was my Splunk one, and that is if that guy is up and running.
Can we go back for just a second?
Sure.
And I'm not sure if I'm taking you off script or not. But,
No.
In the I guess it was the CrowdStrike where you showed the donut charts.
Mm-hmm.
It says, if I'm reading that right correctly, under your Veeam backup or replication security events, it's talking about key management rotation. What are you guys doing with keys and key management?
So we integrate with different KMS vendors.
Okay.
So we can integrate with whatever vendor the customer chooses. We have a list of logos that are up there. And this is essentially just highlighting that there was a key rotation happening as an event and that got ported up into.
So it's the key management systems doing that. You're
External.
You're external to you, but you're just recording the event.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But if they're not using an external KMS, we can do manual encryption key setting. So back to my recoverable data from ransomware, there can be a single user-driven password that Veeam itself has built-in password loss prevention and stuff like that. But the enterprise thing to do is external KMS.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Quick question for you, Romeo. The Veeam One data sources. What sources can you utilize there?
That is everything that we are looking at protecting. So the virtual machines, if that's running in VMware or Hyper-V. So essentially it's pulling in information from there. It's also pulling in information from the backups. So whatever we've recently backed up, NAS or file data. We also do enterprise application plugins. So SAP, Oracle, SQL. So Veeam One is essentially just monitoring both from what's running in production, but then also what's happening from the backup side. So it's looking at information from two different avenues.
Okay, how does that differ from the Veeam backup and replication data sources?
Sure, yeah, so this is actually just what the actual backup is itself.
Okay.
So I would say Veeam One also looks directly into production itself. So if we start seeing somebody try to go in and, a bunch of logon or brute force attempts happening on a machine, for example, when I actually saw this happen with an organization, they had over 500 attempts happening from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. every single day of a bad username and password being utilized against one of their machines. And they're like, well, what is this that's happening? So Veeam One is able to detect that because it's looking directly at the production machine itself. It wasn't essentially happening in the backup.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I like to say for the audience, I guarantee you Veeam One will tell you something about your environment you didn't know, but you need to address.
Thanks,
So how does it gather this information?
Collectors. It's agentless directly to Veeam, or there is a Veeam agent to Veeam, which is kind of funky, but to the primary data sources, namely virtual infrastructures and to an extent physical infrastructures, it's agentless, network-based collection and authentication. For another Tech Field Day, there's actually some really cool AI stuff that we're doing to preemptively see some problems based on some things we see. It's a reverse dial home telemetry analysis situation. It's called intelligent diagnostics, but there's some automated ways to fix that too, which that one does require a Veeam agent inside of Veeam to do that.
Yep. So we'll level set.
Okay. Well, thank you for watching this segment of Security Field Day 13 about the security ecosystem. I'm Rick Vanover from Veeam.
And I'm Emily Tejas.
Stay tuned for other segments where we walk through the additional security capabilities.